the 7 angels and what was with them, and the 7 trumpets as we continue on. The 7 angels, each one of them had a trumpet. But we have to see how it fills in with the incense bowl, which you're going to read, with the fire from the altar, and how it sends it all crashing to earth. So, Revelations 8. Who wants to read verse 5? And then go down, read through verse 7.
And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar. And it cast it into the earth, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and earthquakes. And 7 seals, or 7 angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of the trees was burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. Next one.
Just through 7.
Okay.
Now you see that it reverted back to the seals, the 6th seal, and it's talking about the voices and the thunder and the lightning and the earthquakes. When you think about it, look at the chaos that was going on at the end of the 7th seal, and now all this is happening again. And then the first trumpet is sounded, and it rains down hell and fire, and mixed with blood, and makes them, look at what's burned up in that amount of time when that first trumpet sounds. And it's not a time-lapse thing, it's instant. When the trumpet sounds, it starts right then. And it says that 1/3 of the earth. Now you notice where the 1/3 is again. 1/3 of the earth, 1/3 of the trees, and all the grass is burned up. You remember the 1/3 back in the 7, before the 12,000. It would have been let me find it real quick. After the beginning of the 7 seals, and it's talking about, how quick things is happening. The 4th seal is the 4 horsemen, and how they come about, and then all of a sudden you got all this going on. You got hell and fire mixed with blood, and again 1/3 of the earth is going burn up. 1/3 of the trees. And the grass is burned up.
I thought it was a 4th. I said I thought it was a 4th.
1/3.
Well, where does it say that? That's what I'm looking for.
1/3. It says that in 8:7, Revelations 8:7.
1/3. But what is this 4th over here, over the 4th part of the earth? In 6:8. When we were talking about the pale horse, and power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth.
That's under the horses, under the pale horse.
Okay.
So there's a difference now, because now we're further into, what is all this, what do you think all this is related to? What is it? The coming.
Yeah.
The coming of Christ. This is the tribulation. This is the tribulation. This is what's going to happen in the tribulation period.
This is what's going to take place.
Is it today? No. Is it tomorrow? We don't know. It could be any time. That's why it's so important that we need to understand that people have to be ready. And I'm telling you, okay is not going to get it. I'm okay. And then they turn right around and say, well, I don't know if I can make it, or I'm gonna make it or not.
Will the Christian people be in any of the tribulation?
Any Christian people? No. If you're a Christian, you're going after the third chapter. You won't see none of
I don't
this.
believe you will.
You'll see the pre-tribulation period, which I truly believe we're in now.
We're in now. Yeah.
When you look at what's going on around us, I believe that the worst is yet to come. And we won't see that. The churches will be gone. After the third chapter of Revelations, the churches is gone. There's no more mention of the churches after the third chapter of Revelations.
It's all about what's going to take place.
It's what's going to happen after that. That's going to be coming. In other words, what's coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I believe we're in the first part of it. Right.
we're in the pre-tribulation period.
You know, because Christ, the Word tells us, look for signs. Well, if you're a Christian, you ought to be looking for these signs, and you ought to be able to see these signs, because they're happening.
If you're a Christian, you're going to
That's
understand
it.
the signs. And you know, there's nobody here can say that
They haven't seen it.
we haven't seen things that has never come.
That's out of order. That's
You
out, yeah.
I mean, and it's just like I said the other morning with the volcano in Hawaii or in Alaska. You know, it's been dormant for 800 years.
We've got earthquakes where they've never been.
Never been.
You know,
I was told by a young boy I was working with, he said there was a volcano around here. I said, really?
There's none in the state of Ohio.
that's what I know.
No, there's no volcanic activity. There's not even
No,
another
there's-
fault line.
There's Yosemite, which hasn't blown.
But there's no volcano itself in the state of Ohio.
Over there in Wyoming, I think, right? Isn't that where that one is?
See what he's talking about or not?
But
There's
you see
there's-
what's going to
it's
happen?
underneath
You
there.
know, when that first trumpet sounds, now the angels is the ones blowing this trumpet. They're the ones sounding the trumpet. And you see, when that first trumpet, the very first one sounds, you know, it's gonna have hail and fire mixed with blood. A third of the earth is burned up. A third of the earth. A third of the trees are burned up, and all the grass. But look what it says in 8:8. Somebody read it.
And the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burned with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood.
The second trumpet sounds.
No.
Now, it's something like a mountain burning with fire. But now what? And it's thrown into the sea. What do you think it could be?
A volcano. A volcano.
I think it's a meteor.
It could be a
Or a
meteor.
comet.
Could be a meteor.
I just think it has to be something huge.
Now, how many's been watching the news about the meteor right now that they keep losing sight of? That's humongous in size.
They can't tell you whether we're going to get hit or not. They say
Yeah, they don't
it's going
know.
to pass right by us. Or,
So,
yeah.
but when you look at that, and you look at the first trumpet with 1/3 of the grass and of the earth, 1/3 of the earth burn up, and then you look at they're throwing something. Well, who's throwing it? You know God's throwing it. It's not a question. And it's burning with fire into the sea. Now, the sea won't put out a meteor. That's the reason I'm leaning towards it being a meteor. But it goes on and it kills 1/3 of the creatures of the sea, destroys 1/3 of the ships. When this was written by John, you gotta remember, you gotta look at the difference between a ship then and a ship now. You know, how big was a ship then?
There were wooden ones,
You had your sail ships.
small wooden ones.
Sails.
Now they got great big
But
gigantic.
the biggest one,
boats.
I think the biggest one was what, 32 foot?
Probably something
I
like
think, if I remember reading it. It was 32 foot long, back when John was writing it.
Yeah, them would bring your sail ships.
Yeah, and then, and they had barges. Barges transported stuff around the ocean front. But look at what would transpire, and it says that it kills 1/3 of the creatures of the sea, destroys 1/3 of the ships. Now, what havoc would it have on today's world if it took out 1/3 of the sea
Oh, Lord.
and 1/3 of the ships?
Been havoc.
70% of the world trade today, of the world. Now see, this is just not the United States that this Bible talking about, it's of the world. 70% of today's world gets everything by ship. Everything by ship. So, how many people is on one of those ships?
Your sail would have been, I don't know.
Now you take out 1/3 of them, you take out 1/3 of that, how much food is on them ships? You take out 1/3 of that,
Well, there would be taken probably a lot because they would buy food from us and go to some other place maybe and buying food and taking it back to their country.
the world. See,
They
that's
don't
what
have
people
anything to
keep
take.
thinking, that it's just about the United States, but it's not.
This is the world.
It's about the world.
Well, when COVID started,
Yeah.
and you went to the grocery stores, and everybody had piled up stuff, and there were shelves empty, that was enough to
What
scare
do you
you.
think's gonna happen if 1/3 of the food disappears off the ocean?
People starved to
Yeah.
What was it during COVID?
It
You
was-
couldn't even buy
You
toilet
couldn't buy
paper.
toilet paper.
People starved there.
Still can't figure that one out.
There'll be more people starving to death than anything.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just that plain and simple. So, and the thing of it is,
The famines will come with a lot, Richard.
it has to be. We take our seed and ship it overseas, our seed corn, our soybeans, we ship that seed overseas. Now, if those ships is destroyed, overseas is not gonna get no food, no kind of crops.
I read an article once that by 2050, and that's only 25 years away,
Yeah.
we will not have enough food to supply all the people in the world. There won't be enough food to supply.
Well, for one thing, they got all them
I'll tell you
things,
what, and that's what we're talking about.
having the people put their metal
And that's what's
things to
happening
get
in
it.
this.
Yeah, the solar panels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
1/3 of
terrible
it's
to
already
drive
gone.
around and see all these fields with
I know.
those in them.
But now look what happens when the third trumpet. Somebody read Revelations 8:10.
This goes what you was talking about.
And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of water.
There's your meteor.
Now, read the last sentence again and listen to what it says.
And it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of water.
Fountains of water.
So that would be the sea, wouldn't it?
That would be your drinking water.
The drinking water, the waterfalls, the fresh waters.
You know, there's and it takes out 1/3 of the fresh water. It becomes bitter.
1/3 of the fresh water.
1/3 of your fresh water, unsuitable for drinking, unsuitable for cooking with. The fish,
Be bitter,
Well, you wouldn't be able to eat them at all,
You
even
would
if
never
they
be
were
eaten.
alive if something like that happened.
that'll create thirst.
and there's a name for it which is called wormwood.
I pictured that as trees that had worms.
It'd be undrinkable.
Be undrinkable.
Dig in holes and, yeah, because that's what I always thought wormwood was.
Revelations 8:12. Somebody read it. It's the fourth trumpet.
And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise.
A third part of the skies, a third of the sky is blackened of the sun. It's blackened from the moon. It's blackened from the stars.
But day and night.
Now, what would create that?
A meteor with a volcanic eruption. I mean, you got the mountain on fire. To me, that's saying volcanic eruption,
Volcanic explosion, or
followed by a meteor, the star falling from the sky.
how about a nuclear attack?
Yeah.
Could be.
Well, see, without the light, you couldn't grow crops. You couldn't grow nothing.
You couldn't see nothing.
Couldn't see nothing. I mean, you gotta have the light to grow.
Now, if there is a nuclear war,
That's going to kill the land
does.
for years. Yeah.
and do you remember what was the atomic bomb?
I remember.
Yeah.
You remember what it looked like when it went off? Now, it wasn't that big, remember?
Just like a big,
Mushroom.
like a big ash.
It was the
Okay.
big mushroom
Now,
cloud, and it
if you take
spread.
that and it takes out 1/3, if you got one of those, if that's what happens, and it takes out 1/3, look at what that mushroom-shaped atomic bomb done.
Because the guy that dropped that, I listened to the story on that. He told it.
Yeah.
He cried. He cried.
So,
Because they told him as soon as he dropped it to shoot his airplane as straight up as far as he could go. And he said he still cried when it hit.
it is. This is what's going to happen in the last days. People's got to understand that. This is what is going to happen. This is what's going to be going on. And as you read this and as you study it, this is the fourth trumpet. Again, the fourth trumpet blown by the seven angels as they're coming down. But in Hebrew, it speaks of an eagle that flies over John's head. Now you know where John's at. He's in a vision at the temple, and an eagle flies over his head and says, the next three trumpets get even worse. Now, how much worse can it get if you got 1/3 of the earth gone and you can't see the third? day or night, but it's gonna get worse. Let's look at the fifth trumpet. In Revelations 9:1.
And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit.
Wonder what's gonna be there. So we've seen a star fall from heaven to earth. We've seen the smoldering cloud of smoke, the volcanic imagery, I guess you would call it. And now we're getting down to the fifth trumpet, and there comes an army out of it of weird locusts. Has anybody ever seen a locust?
It's been years, hasn't it?
been
We've
a
had a
little
few
while.
here and there, but
Been a little
nothing.
while.
But
Oh, it's raining.
a locust is a feral grasshopper.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
No, but they made a lot of noise. I mean, they were
Now,
really,
these locusts is going to be the size of horses.
wow.
Now, that's pretty good size, isn't it? And they're going to have golden crowns, human faces, women's hair, lion's teeth, armor like a breastplate of iron, and the power in their tails to torment those not sealed by God.
Now, what verse is that you just read?
I got it out of my commentary.
Oh,
Verse 3 talks about the locust. 9:3 talks about the locust.
But
And that's starting your plagues.
okay, yeah, it is.
9:7 also.
it's real
It's the
close.
9th verse, it does have some of that in here.
But do you see what?
7th down.
I said that locust is down the bottom, and it probably represents demons.
Demons. But you gotta go back, if you go back to Luke, somebody look at Luke 10:18, or I'll look at it since I've got it marked. Luke
Would
10:18,
help us.
here's what Luke 10:18 says, and you can put your own mind to it. Now all this is transpiring. Who's in charge of the world today? The world. Satan. Satan's, he's in charge of the world.
This is dominion right here.
Now, if you think about what all this is just said, what I just read, and you go back to Luke, and Jesus said that in Luke 10:18, Jesus said, and he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Do you remember when he was kicked out of heaven?
Yep.
How many people did he take with him? A third. Now, we got a third of the moon, a third of the stars, a third of the sun.
That's rain.
There's your radar.
A third of the earth burned up.
Are you sure?
A
It's
third of
pouring
the
down. I can
trees.
see it.
And we know now, you know, Jesus seen Satan kicked out of heaven, and he took a third with him. So you see where all the 1/3 is coming in at. So if he took a third of them people, then he's got them all working for him, doesn't he? all working for him. And it's gonna get worse, and it says that he had the key to the bottomless pit. He opened the bottomless pit up. Now what's coming out of the bottomless pit? If we go back and study the bottomless pit, you'll find that there was smoke and heat, everything burning up. So
That's the artist rendering of one of the locusts.
Bottom is the abyss.
yep,
Huh.
Someone drew
My footnote said
the artist,
about the
or
locust.
a picture of the locust.
I had someone ask me about that.
It's kind of pretty, but it's kind of scary.
Those people-
It's crazy.
they said people-
And it's going to be as big as we are.
My footnote said about the locust, said these locusts are given power, presumably by God, to sting like scorpions.
Mm-hmm.
They can go after but not kill those without God's seal. The 5-month period of torment may correspond to the typical lifespan of the locust, or it may simply be a way to communicate that the torment will last a few months. This is how the number 5 is used elsewhere in Scripture.
so
Wow.
that's the locust
With a scorpion tail.
with the scorpion tail. Now, a scorpion,
I know, it says they're like
you know, and
Yeah.
that's what they're describing. You remember, a
Yeah.
scorpion stings you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't kill you,
Yeah.
but
But just think 5 months of that.
5 months of it.
Yeah.
He described a demon.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's just the first thing.
but people don't believe this is going to happen. And this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to take place. You may get to see more of it than any of it.
Now,
Or you may, if your heart is totally right with God, you won't have to see any of it. Do you think you can live through any of this?
No, I
No
don't
way.
think anybody really could.
You can't do it.
do you believe, just ask you first, do you believe all the people from the beginning of this Bible to read, and this includes all of them? I knew that it was under law back in that Old Testament. But do you believe this will take in those people too? That don't make, that don't believe in what we're reading?
No, they won't be here. They're already dead. They're already dead, so they won't be
They'll be just the ones that's up on the surface.
just the ones now
In the world.
in the world now.
In the world.
But at the end, these the ones that's already dead that didn't accept God, didn't obey the law. Then they're going to have the final judgment. But they won't see this
No.
part of it take place because they're dead. They're all, they're not going to see this. So they'll either be judged and cast into the devil's, the bottomless pit, or they'll be judged and be with Jesus forever. So,
Yeah.
This is after the rapture.
this is after the rapture. All this is going to happen after the rapture.
So you,
The church is
do
gone.
you think there's gonna be Christians after the rapture?
There's not going to be Christians. There's going to be some that's going to be saved if they don't accept the mark of the beast. They're going to have to stand and say,
They will be killed at that point, probably.
they're going to have to stand there and say,
They will
kill
go into
me,
heaven.
I am not taking your stand.
Yep.
And that's the only way they're going to be saved. I believe God now. I didn't back then, but I believe Him now. I believe what I'm seeing. I'm not taking the mark. Kill me.
Now you back up to the churches, that's where I think the backsliders is going to come.
That's where a lot of the backsliders are going to come in.
Because they will already know.
And I was reading some other stuff in the commentary, and I don't want to get too far into it because it's really, I think that your false prophets that we have today, they're gonna have that same opportunity to make that decision, to either take the mark or be cast into, or be either take the mark and say, you know, I'm repenting right now.
Not taking them all.
I'm not taking the mark. So, the only thing I think that the world, when all this is transpiring, and it goes on through, we still got the sixth seal, we got it in one, because we're 6 and 7, or the trumpet, I mean, but I think that the churches, you know, the minute that trumpet sounds, these churches are going to be full. I said the other day, and I still believe it, they'll be breaking the windows out to crawl into this building.
I believe there'll be pastors included.
And there'll be pastors included in it. I believe there'll be pastors. And the reason I say pastors is because pastors is not preaching the word. You know, like I told them up there the other day at the college, you know, when I was, you know, they gave me an opportunity to say something nobody else did, you know, but I want the young people to know, the ones starting out, you know, this is not a game. You know, this is not a game. This is for real. And those people's blood's going to be on your hands if you steer them wrong. Plain and simple. You know, it's...
Yeah, because you've got pastors wanting numbers, wanting money,
That's...
big mega churches.
it,
I'm not saying all mega churches, but
they all want, you know, oh, I got 100 people, I'd like to have 200. You know, and that's what it's all about, is people, people, people. It's not concern. And my concern is, and that's why I'm here, my concern is I want to see souls saved. You know, I want to see your kids saved. I want to see your kids and your kids. That's why I'm here. You know, and I hear, I just got a message from somebody the other day that listened to the service. Man, why do you preach so hard on hell? Why do you preach so hard?
they don't want to hear that.
You know,
Yeah,
I
why'd
just
you
got told
turn
them,
it
I said,
on now?
why? Because I want to see you go to
If
heaven
they
instead
didn't
of
want to
go to
hear
hell.
it, to be what did they expect?
You should.
That they ought to be thankful there's somebody
Yeah.
who's ready
You
to
know.
tell them.
I agree,
Yeah.
but you should have said they must like it, because they're sticking it out.
I mean, and I told them at Bainbridge, and you know, I'm sorry, you know, I think every week,
But
but you have to.
if you don't, when judgment days comes, it's going to be on
It's
you.
on me.
Yeah.
You may lose your soul over it. You don't know.
It's on me. So, you know, I prayed about it. Lord, you know, why am I beating the church up? And here, you know what he said? He said, because there's more than the church listening. Now, and I thought, well, yeah, it is online, you know, and it is going out here, going out there. But I thought about what the lady said. She heard it online. No, she heard it at church. She was at the church service. It was at Overly Chapel when I was in revival. And she was at the service. And she told her brother-in-law, and he got saved. So it's not just at the church. It's not just because it's online and people can hear it. We run, you know, we don't run like the big churches. We run 30 or 40 that watches the shows that the services we put on. But out of those 30 or 40, you know, they might hear something and they might say something to you And you know what I'm saying? I gotta do what God tells me to do. I don't have an option. You know, I'm not having their blood on my hands. I'm gonna do what He tells me, so.
And also, when you get in the pulpit, you don't have no friends with Jesus.
I do what?
You don't have no friends in the pulpit.
I don't have no friends.
Except
No.
Jesus.
I
Except
mean,
Jesus.
I just, I listen to His voice. And I've literally said, you know, you gotta slow down. I can't talk as fast as you're telling me. And that's what you have to do. I mean, I don't know. Let's go at least get through a couple of these. We got about 15 minutes left, so we can get through. 9:13. Somebody read Revelation 9:13. This is going to be the 6th.
And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God. How far do you want me to read?
9:13.
Okay, well that was it.
And I done some more on this, you know, and it's an army of 200 million horses led by 4 angels. And for some reason, this is what John said, from what I'm reading. For some reason, they are bound at the Euphrates River. And they are released. And they're permitted to kill, again, 1/3 of mankind. 1/3 of mankind. If you go back to the black horseman, remember the fourth seal in Revelation 6, and it said that he killed 1/4 of the humans, 1.9 billion people.
It said 1/3 of the population.
Yeah, 1.9 billion.
Of the population.
And the numbers, like I said, and I don't know why I could not find it, but it just seems like that it wasn't. No matter where I went, I couldn't come up with today's population in 2024, and everything was based off of the 2019 census. So, and that's worldwide, 1.9. Now see, you gotta understand, we're not talking about the United States. We're talking about the world. 1.9 billion people. And they've been bound at the Euphrates River. So, does anybody remember what the news was talking about, not just a couple of days ago, about the Euphrates River?
I don't even listen to news.
It's drying up, and what is it? China will be able to use it.
But do you remember them talking about how many people gathering there, even though the water's drying up, and they're starving, but how many people is gathering there? And it says that there'll be 200 million horses. And right now, on them banks, there's something like 110 million. You know, why are they there? Because Revelation 9:13 says they are. I mean, they're building up to so that the Bible will will be true. All the way through. So, so with the sixth trumpet, when you break it down with the sixth trumpet, you've got a quarter, a third, and 3/4. Half the population of the world is gone. Now, are these 200 million people, or 200 million horses, are they just horses? Just normal horses? So we got lions' heads, they breathe fire, smoke, sulfur smoke. Now, what does that represent? Is it the 3 plagues that's doing the killing? I think it is. I think that's what it's talking about. I mean, you got the locust with the tail of a serpent. You got the tails are like scorpions. So is it? I don't think they're normal horses.
Oh, no. They got tails that are serpents.
Huh?
Their tails are serpents.
Yeah, I don't think they're
That
normal
hunt
horses.
and kill,
I mean,
no.
So.
The tail kills
But
too.
again,
so.
who is in charge of it?
It also said it had faces of humans.
Faces of humans. Now, I've got a theory on the faces of humans, but if we get into that, we'll be here a while, but I don't want to get into it, so I'll better, and be some other time. There's a lot, when you break this down, there's a lot more yet in this than what we haven't even scratched the surface yet.
Now, it said those scorpions in 9:11 said they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is
Abaddon.
Is that what it is?
Mhm.
Yeah,
But in the Greek tongue had his name Apollyon.
Mhm.
So they got a king over them, the scorpion's eyes.
now, if you go through all of chapter 10, and it's all about the seventh, the sixth trumpet, all the way through. It tells what all that is, all the way through chapter 10. The seventh trumpet doesn't come into play until you get into chapter 11. It's the only one, chapter 10 is the only one that's got all about one trumpet. And that's the one that's talking about, a quarter of the people going, a third of the people going, 3/4 going, half of the population is gone by this time. So, and then you get into chapter 11, actually it's clear up till 11:15. Revelation 11:15 is the seventh trumpet. And I think what we're going to find is that the kingdom of this world is the kingdom of Christ now. So, and it says he shall reign forever and ever. Revelations 11:15, somebody read it.
And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our land, and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever.
Then it goes on to say that the announcement of the eternal reign of God is accompanied by a new song from 24 elders, as well as lightning, thunder, earthquake, hail, and hail as in ice balls. So, God has took over. He's let the devil have his reign. The people now are going to be, I think they're going to be into the point now to where they're crying out. They're already breaking the doors down to try to get into the churches. They're seeing everything that's going on. You know, when we look at it, and you got to think about all these shields. We've come through 6 of them, and you got to think about, well, that's just happening in Arizona. And then you look and you say, you know, just the other day, you and I was talking about all the farmland that's laid not been planted. Why? Why hasn't it been planted?
Make more money off of the church.
With food prices as high as they are, why hasn't it been planted?
So they can make them bigger, yeah, make more money at the grocery store.
Now, what does that create?
Shortage.
A famine.
A shortage of food.
Shortage of food is a famine. And it's getting to the point to where you can't afford to buy food. You know, I was at Walmart today, and I thought, oh, I'd like to have a T-bone steak. And I picked up a pretty nice looking T-bone steak, you know, and it wasn't thick, you know how they cut them at Walmart, about a ½ inch. And it was about that big around. And I looked at it and I thought, well, that does look good. And I looked at $27, and I said, it ain't that good.
Well, look what a pack of hamburger is.
Yeah.
Now
What's
they
a loaf of
eat
bread?
steak.
He's got a steak left over from Carl's.
Listen,
But he won't go out and look through the freezer and
There's farm books and stuff. This ain't, I'm telling you, this is not.
It's nothing, but this is what the Bible's telling us is going to happen.
I'm talking
You
about.
know,
Carl's had them on sale.
what we're going through right now is going to happen, and it's happening right before our eyes.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it's all going to happen today or tomorrow or the next day.
Well, look at all these solar panels that's taking off.
Exactly.
And that's utterly ridiculous.
We're talking about that too. In my opinion, it's always.
You go up towards Circleville and it is
That's
horrible.
the government.
The government's.
On the other
But
side.
here's the thing, those solar panels is only good for at the most 20 years,
You
and
can't,
they do more
What
harm
happens
to
to
the
the
soil.
Well, then you look at China buying up all our farmland from different areas.
But what we're talking about now, that we see, it's right here. It's in the word.
7,000 killed. I'm going to read some of the stuff that I found. And it says in Revelations 10, 3 and 4, it says the angel swears that the great and terrible day of the Lord has finally arrived. An angel says that the terrible day of the Lord has finally arrived. And that's through the 7 thunders. You know, we went through the seven trumpets. And then in between the 6th and the 7th trumpet is when John sees another vision, and it's a massive flaming angel. Now listen, it's a massive flaming angel who puts 1 foot on the land and 1 foot on the sea. Now who is it? It's Christ. You know, that's who it is. I mean, and then John talks about the 7 thunders, but the voice tells him to write not, tells him not to write these words in Revelations 10, 3 and 4. And the angel swears that the great day of the Lord has finally arrived. So, and it goes on in some of the commentaries, and I've got that the angel was carrying a scroll smaller than the earlier scroll with the 7 seals, which he gives to John to eat. So, and then it goes on, 7,000 killed, the interlude between the 6th and 7th seals. It continues with John measuring the temple of God and 2 fire-breathing witnesses arising to prophecy for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Now, I think right now, we're in that 3.5 years. Right now, we're in the pre-tribulation period in the 3.5 years. When you look at what's going on around the world, and you've got to follow the world news, not the state, not the United States. You've got to follow the world news. The wars, the rumors of wars, the earthquakes, the flooding, the famine going on right now. All that's happening right now. And that's the 3.5 years. So we're into that 3.5 year period. Now where we are in it, you got to keep in mind that one day is like 1,000 years with the Lord. So, I don't think it's going to be no 1,000 years, believe me. I don't see it.
It will be 1,000 years with us.
I don't see how we can continue to survive. And it goes on in Revelation 11, 1 through 14. And it says, eventually they are killed by the beast from the bottomless pit, 2 horns. But then God raises them up to life and them to heaven. Now who's he talking about? He's talking about the saints of God. That's here now. The ones that's going to be, that is living for Him and serving Him and worshiping Him. So, and then it goes on, some things that I've read, and I've seen a little bit of it, and Jerusalem's going to suffer an earthquake, and it's going to kill around 7,000 people. And that's going to push us up to about 3.5 million, almost 4 billion, 3.5 billion to 4 billion people that's dead now. I think we need to watch, because Jerusalem's going to suffer an earthquake. But, it says it killed 7,000 people. But that's the 7. It's a number. And it's a completion of the 1,000, so it's 7,000. Could it be 700,000? Very easily could be. I'm just kind of speculating what I was reading. So, and I don't think it's going to be too far off. So, there'll be death and then the resurrection. And then the second part, the last 3.5 years, the second part, that's going to be brought about by the 6th trumpet. The 6th, not the 7th, the 6th trumpet. That's going to be the last 3.5 years. And that's when I said they're going to be breaking the doors down. They're going to be doing everything they can. And they'll either do one or 2 things. They'll either take their mark or they'll die. And the only opportunity they'll have at that point, the only opportunity they will have is to die. They're going to make it. They can't make it no other way. Any questions? Anybody? into it.